Have you ever walked into a room and felt something was off, an emotion that was hard to describe, or your heart beating faster than it did before you entered the space? Or have you ever tried to calm yourself down, but things barely improved? Not a word is spoken. No one looks directly at you, yet everything feels different. Why do people glance at you and then quickly look away? Why do some lean in while sitting, only to pull back, as if they've seen something they didn't expect? Here are the reasons behind that strange feeling. Watch the whole video to recognize each situation and help yourself become more confident and proactive in these moments. Your energy is too strong for others. It's not because you're trying to raise your energy. It's already there, and your perception of energy is stronger than most people's. You know it. It's a natural ability. You're on a journey to identify your inner emotions. You're learning to face the storms of your heart to grow from them. Have you ever thought that maybe this is your chance to bring clarity or healing into a chaotic world? This video is for those who often feel out of balance, sometimes overflowing with energy, and other times drained. It's not because you're overloaded, but because the space around you isn't ready for your frequency. So let's dig into 13 signs that your presence can transform a room, activate connection, and bring clarity to the space around you. No flattery, no apologies, just truth. Let's begin with the first 5 signs. Sign 1. You intimidate people without saying a word. You don't try to be seen. You don't walk into rooms to make a statement. But somehow, when you show up, the air shifts. People pause mid-sentence. The energy thickens. Conversations slow, sometimes stop entirely. You've probably wondered why. Like Myra, 33, a soft-spoken leadership coach who asked, "Why does it feel like I silence rooms just by entering?" She thought it was social awkwardness. But the truth? She carried presence. Not the loud kind, not the performative kind, but a grounded, anchored presence that revealed the instability in others. And that's what most people can't name. When you own who you are so completely, it unsettles those still hiding. If people stiffen, fidget, or suddenly act off around you, don't take it personally. They're not reacting to you. They're reacting to the reflection of who they're not yet ready to be. So the next time silence follows your steps, don't question it. Own it. That's the power of being undeniably real. Sign 2. You speak the truth even when it's uncomfortable. You don't do polite pretending. You're not the type to smile just to smooth things over. If something feels off, you say it. If someone crosses a line, you name it. You're not rude, you're real. In a room full of nodding heads, you're the one who gently but firmly says, "Actually, that's not okay." And the energy changes. Because truth, it doesn't whisper, it resonates. You don't raise your voice. But your honesty lands like a quiet earthquake, unseen but impossible to ignore. Some call you confrontational, others say you're too much. But what they really mean is, you make them feel what they've been avoiding. Ever noticed how people squirm when you stay silent? As if your presence alone uncovers the lies in the room? That's not something you force. It's what your field naturally does. You hold space where truth has no choice but to rise. And in a world built on masks, you walk in as a mirror. Sign 3. You see through people instantly. While most people spend time getting to know others, you sense who someone really is almost immediately. They're smiling, they're talking, they're charming. But you can feel what's behind the surface. It's not because you're suspicious. It's because your intuition speaks before words are exchanged. It picks up energy clearly and powerfully. You've experienced betrayal. You've sat with silence. And now, you recognize authenticity or the lack of it almost instantly. You meet someone, and you just know. Are they genuine? Are they wearing a mask? Are their wounds doing the talking? You don't need proof. You don't need gossip. You don't even need them to speak much. Your intuition gives you the first and often the final impression. And that unsettles people. They feel exposed, like their armor doesn't work around you. They back away. They question themselves. But don't confuse their reaction with rejection. It's not about you doing anything wrong. It's about them being faced with something they weren't ready to see. You are a walking mirror of light. And for some, that's overwhelming. They may try to hide. They may forget who they really are. But that's not your loss. That's their growth process. You didn't demand anything from them. You simply saw them. and that alone was enough to shake something awake inside them. Sign 4. You attract people, then confuse them. You don't chase attention, you don't try to stand out, but somehow people notice. It's not the way you dress, it's not how you speak, it's the way you are. There's a glow in your presence, quiet, steady, undeniable. People are drawn to it, they lean in, curious, intrigued, and then something shifts. Like Evan, 27, who once shared, "I couldn't stop talking to her. She was calm, even warm, but when she looked at me in silence, I felt like she knew everything I was trying to hide." You didn't say much, you didn't press, but your presence did the work. You're calm but grounded, kind but with strong boundaries, available but never desperate. And that confuses people, because most are used to energy that either clings or repels. You do neither. You simply hold space. And in that space, people meet themselves, not always in ways they're ready for. Some feel safe, some feel seen, others feel exposed. But here's the truth. Their response has nothing to do with your worth. You're not too complex, you're just rare, and not everyone knows what to do with real. Sign 5. You thrive in solitude. You're not hiding, you're not avoiding. You choose silence intentionally. You're not afraid to be alone with your thoughts. You welcome it, because that's how you process, how you befriend yourself. While others lose themselves in distractions, crowds, noise, constant stimulation, you sit in stillness. You reflect, you listen, and that makes you powerful in ways others don't understand. You're the kind of person who spends Friday nights journaling, not because you have no one to talk to, but because you value the voice within more than the noise outside. You don't fill silence, you let it flow, and it restores you. But this unsettles people. They mistake calm for isolation. They call you quiet, boring, distant. But what they really mean is, your stillness reminds them of their own restlessness. You're not lonely, you're recharging, you're reconnecting, and your energy, it doesn't come from chaos, it rises from within. So if solitude feels like home, trust it, it's not loneliness, it's your maturity. Sign 6, you don't chase people, you attract what's right for you. There was a time when you tried to be softer, tried to explain, tried to win back love that was fading. You waited, you hoped, you gave chances, but not anymore. Now you let your energy speak. If someone aligns, you welcome it. If not, you release them with peace. You've learned, what's meant for you won't require you to shrink. You no longer dim your light to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You don't edit your voice just to be understood. Some say you're cold, some say you're distant. But here's the truth, you're not unreachable. You're just not available for anything that drains your spirit. You've stopped begging to be chosen, because now you choose. And when you're aligned with your values, the right people won't need convincing. They'll recognize your worth on their own. Sign 7, you trigger people without even trying. You walk into a room and without saying a word, someone tenses, their tone shifts, their energy changes. You didn't confront them, you didn't criticize them, but somehow your presence made them feel exposed. Why? Because you reflect what's unresolved in others. Your quiet confidence, it shines a spotlight on their insecurities. Your calmness, it disrupts their internal chaos. Your truth, it makes their mask feel heavier. You didn't sign up to be a mirror, but energy doesn't ask for permission, it just is. And you've become a living reflection, not because you judge Bane, but because you exist without pretending. That's rare. And for many, it's terrifying. They act defensive. They avoid eye contact. They pull away not because you harmed them, but because you stirred something they weren't ready to see. So pause. Think of someone who recently distanced themselves. Ask yourself, did you wrong them or did you reveal them? Because that's what power does. It doesn't always comfort. Sometimes it confronts simply by being present. And no, you're not responsible for their reaction. Your only job, keep being real, keep being light. The world has enough noise. It needs more mirrors. Sign 8. Your boundaries are felt before they're spoken. You rarely need to say, that's not okay. Because long before the words, your presence already made it clear. People feel it. In the way you look them in the eye without flinching. In the way you sit still, unmoved by chaos. In the way you disengage, not out of coldness, but clarity. You don't need confrontation. You don't need drama. You just don't participate in energy that feels off. You don't entertain gossip. You don't explain your no. You don't shrink just to make others more comfortable. And that commands attention. There's a calm authority in how you hold yourself, a quiet don't mess with me frequency that requires no volume. It doesn't beg for respect, it commands it. And people adjust, not because you made a threat, but because your energy said, this space is sacred, respect it or step out. You've stopped fighting for space, you simply occupy it fully. And in doing so, you teach others how to treat you without ever needing to raise your voice. Boundaries don't need to be loud, they just need to be real. And yours are unmistakably real. Sign 9. You inspire others without even trying. You don't hand out life lessons. You don't post quotes and call it wisdom. You don't chase platforms, microphones, or attention. You just live your truth. And somehow that alone becomes a lighthouse. People watch you walk away from situations that others would cling to. They see how you protect your peace without apology. And suddenly, they start questioning why they keep compromising theirs. They see you embrace solitude and realize they've been running from silence their whole life. You never asked to be a role model, but something in how you carry yourself whispers what most people forgot. Power doesn't shout, it simply is. Your growth is visible without needing to be broadcasted. Your clarity is felt without a single lecture. Your presence teaches without a word. Even those who envy you, they're learning. Quietly, they may never admit it, but they watch, they feel. Because real influence, it's not about volume, it's about alignment. And you're walking proof that it's possible to be strong and soft, clear and kind, grounded and free. So if you've ever noticed someone watching you, not with judgment, but with curiosity, know this, they're not trying to challenge you. They're trying to understand how you hold yourself so fully. And that, without saying a word, is what makes you unforgettable. Sign 10. You make silence feel loud. You're not afraid of empty space. You're not one to talk just to avoid the pause. In fact, you honor the silence because that's where truth echoes. Most people fill the air with words, noise, distractions, nervous laughter. You don't. You sit still and the room shifts. People fidget, they check their phones, they search for something to say. Because your silence, it reflects everything they haven't made peace with. It reveals how loud their inner world really is. You don't rush to respond. You pause. You breathe. And when you finally speak, it's never to impress, it's to express. Every word feels deliberate, weighted, measured. Because you don't speak just to be heard. You speak to be understood. And that kind of intention, it's rare. It unnerves people who are used to dominating with volume, people who confuse noise with value, people who build their identity around constant feedback. You don't need that. You've learned the power of presence, and that sometimes the loudest thing in the room is the person saying nothing, but meaning everything. Your stillness isn't emptiness, it's presence, sharpened, and it commands more respect than 1,000 wasted words. Sign 11. You no longer need to prove anything. You used to explain yourself. Why you said no, why you needed space, why your standards were high. You used to soften your truth to be liked. You walked on emotional eggshells just to keep the peace. Not anymore. Now you let your energy speak first. You no longer over-clarify your boundaries. You don't chase validation, approval, or applause. You don't argue for your worth. You embody it. You've stopped showing up to conversations where you have to shrink just to be understood. Because you've realized, being misunderstood by the wrong people is better than being accepted for the wrong version of yourself. You walk different now. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're anchored, and that unsettles people who are still performing for praise. Those who only feel seen when others are clapping. Your calm isn't laziness, it's earned peace. It's power that no longer needs to shout. You know who you are, you know what you carry, and you no longer need the world's permission to exist fully. That's not ego, that's evolution. Sign 12. People project onto you constantly. You speak directly and they say you're rude. You set a boundary and they call you selfish. You walk away and suddenly you're too sensitive. But the truth, you're just clear, and clarity threatens illusion. When someone hasn't done the inner work, your energy feels like a spotlight they didn't ask for. You don't expose them with words. Your very presence confronts what they've buried. You remind them of the truth they've been dodging, the choices they haven't owned, the masks they still wear. So instead of sitting with that discomfort, they project it onto you. They say you're cold when you're just grounded. They call you arrogant when you're simply self-assured. They label you intense, when in fact you're fully awake in a world that prefers the numb. But here's what you've learned. Their story isn't yours to carry. Their discomfort, not your guilt. Their judgment, not your responsibility. Let them label you. Let them misunderstand. You're not here to be filtered through someone else's fear. You're here to evolve, to grow, to stay true even when others project what they can't process. And that's a level of freedom most people will never understand. Sign 13. You're not for everyone, and that's your superpower. There was a time you tried to be liked, tried to be understood, tried to fit in even if it meant shrinking who you were. You toned yourself down. You made yourself softer, quieter, easier to digest, all because the room couldn't handle your full presence. But not anymore. Now you understand. Being too much for some people doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're real. You've stopped adjusting your truth for temporary comfort, stopped compromising your depth for shallow approval, stopped breaking yourself into pieces just so others could feel whole. Because the truth is, you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to wake people up, and waking people up, it's disruptive. It rattles comfort zones. It forces people to face what they've ignored inside themselves. That's why your presence makes some people uneasy. You don't even have to speak. You walk in and the energy shifts. Your aura challenges the illusion. It's not because you're dramatic. It's because you're alive in a world that's sleepwalking. You're not here to be agreeable. You're here to be authentic. And authenticity, it breaks things. Masks, patterns, pretenses. Some will admire it, some will run from it. But the right ones, they'll feel it. They'll rise to meet you, not out of obligation, but resonance. Because when you stop seeking permission, you become magnetic. The people who once ghosted you, they'll feel your glow from a distance and wonder how you're still rising. The ones who said you were too intense will watch you thrive in spaces they were never ready for. And you'll realize you didn't lose them. You outgrew them. You didn't wake up with this kind of presence. You earned it through heartbreaks that didn't destroy you, through loneliness that taught you how to hear your own voice, through boundaries that cost you people but gave you back your soul. Your aura is the result of every time you chose to evolve instead of escape, every time you stood in truth instead of seeking validation. Now you no longer seek to be understood by everyone because you finally understand yourself. And when you know who you are, you don't need the world to clap. You just need your own breath, your own path, your own peace. So this is your invitation. Stop dimming, stop apologizing, stop adjusting. Keep walking in your power. Keep radiating your truth. Keep being the energy that not everyone can hold, but the right ones can feel from miles away. And remember, the ones meant for you, they won't ask you to shrink. They'll recognize your light, and they'll rise with you.